In this video, I want to talk about a business opportunity. So I have a podcast. I've had a podcast for a number of years. I do about a weekly episode. I'd say maybe every couple days, every week at the very least, for the last couple years, I've had some kind of podcast booker reach out to me pitching some kind of expert e-commerce, agency influencer type guest. And here's one on my screen that I got, last week, for example. I just typed in podcast, and this was the one that kind of came up. So this lady named Megan from commandyourbrand.media sent me this email trying to pitch me on this lady named Athena. And essentially, what is this? So if you do a Google of like podcast booker or podcast bookers, you'll find a bunch of sites out there. You can see kind of like what their scope is, right? So this company here, podcastbookers.com, access pricing. I have no affiliation with them. I don't know them. I don't know if they're good or bad, but more just to show you some examples. So essentially, you can kind of see their pitch, right? Anywhere from 2 to 4 bookings per month, right? They have a booking agent. They'll find and research the shows. They'll do all the scheduling, booking, etc. They're almost like your VA or your admin if you want to land on certain podcasts in your niche or your industry. And you can kind of see the pricing here, right? $650 a month, $750, $850. Nice to have some recurring revenue. These people called expertbookers.com charge between $650 to $2350. So essentially, what it is if I am, a marketing agency owner, or if I'm a e-commerce brand owner that wants to build my personal brand, going on podcasts, especially the right podcast, can be a great way to get in front of your ICP, kind of your ideal viewers, potential clients, potential sponsors, partners, whatever you want to name it. So you might hire, an agent like Megan's company or the other ones on my screen to work on doing outreach to the podcast hosts. So I get emails all this time pitching people. And it's funny, I actually get them from people that I actually know personally. They're paying, these podcast guests where they might as well just send me an email themselves. Although right now I'm not really taking guests, and maybe they don't have the time, right? So if you're looking for a business that leverages cold email, cold DMs, and outreach that you want to pair with kind of the skills that you're learning in this course or the skills that maybe you already have, this might be an interesting one, right? What I would basically do is I'd go on Twitter, I'd go on Instagram, I'd go on LinkedIn, I'd go on these platforms, find entrepreneurs like myself that are creating content, reach out to them and kind of offer, hey, I can help you get on the top podcast in your industry, whatever the pitch is, are you interested? Here's my pricing. So I would use cold outreach to A, land the clients, and B, ultimately land the podcast that you want to get your guests on. So I'm not sure if that makes sense or not, but kind of to further illustrate, this lady's email was very, very long, right? She sent me a lot of information about this lady, and it was just too long, right? Like it's just way too much work for me to read, not really worth my time. What I would do instead is I would probably craft a short email from her to me saying, something personal, a couple of personal lines about my podcast, been listening to your podcast, love the episode with Mason where you guys talked about the copywriting Olympics, right? Something very specific. Everyone always says, I love your podcast. It's so great. It's so amazing. But they never get anything specific. And the likelihood that they actually listen is probably pretty low. So what I would do, right, if you really want to do this the right way, is find the 10, 15, 30 most popular podcasts that you want to kind of get your guests on. Try to listen to as much as you can, as background music as you're writing emails or doing your research, maybe on your commute or maybe at the gym. Just start listening to some of these podcasts and start taking notes of a few things that you can reach out to and say. For example, I listened to a podcast called My First Million, and I know they have this term called no small boy stuff, right? So if I was reaching out to Sean or Sam, who are the hosts, saying, I want to get, Joe Schmo on the podcast, I might say, hey, Sean, big fan of the podcast, the no small boy stuff, it's absolutely hilarious. If you ever make a t-shirt with that saying, sign me up. I would love to buy one. If not, right, keep crushing it type of a thing. The reason I'm reaching out is I have a guest based off the past guests that you've had that I think would be absolutely incredible for your show. Are you cool if I send over some information on them? Maybe something like that. Maybe a little bit more if the guest is really interesting, right? Hey, this I've got a really interesting guest, similar to a lot of the guests you talk about. He's doing $5 million a year free cash flow. He can talk about tons of business ideas and concepts, et cetera, right? Maybe like 1 or 2 points that might, catch their kind of attention and perk their ears to be like, wow, this guy makes 5, 10, $20 million a year. He does this types of things. He can bring, 7 business ideas around, boring businesses or SaaS companies or whatever it might be. Just something where they know that you get them and you're really curating people based off what you know about them. So long-winded, I would try to do this type of business where you basically are using the skills of cold email, cold DMs to get the clients, and then using those same skills to get the clients onto the bookings. And if you charge, a monthly fee based off of the number of placements, and you have different options, maybe people start on the smaller bucket, right, at 2 clients or 2 podcasts, I guess you'd say, a month, and then you kind of scale them from there. This is a nice way to probably build a 5, 10, 20, $30,000 a month potentially business, where you really don't need tons and tons of clients. I guess at 650, you might need a lot, but if you do a really good job, you might be able to retain them pretty well. You probably can manage 10, 20, 30 clients on this type of a thing if you have it dialed in and you're kind of pitching, the set type of clients. Or this one I kind of liked, where you're kind of selling a larger package and you're selling it over kind of a couple month period, where this is a 2,300 package with 12 interviews over, let's say, 4 months. So it's 3 interviews a month. It's kind of nice to kind of package it that way as well. So you give yourself a little bit more time and you have a little bit kind of higher of a retainer. But this is an interesting business. Let me know if you have any questions, and I hope this was helpful.